Jim, and you've just heard your brother. Now, he's your older brother, right?
Yes.
In the pecking order, he mentioned the four brothers.
Jack is the oldest, Dan is second, I was third, and Bob was fourth. We have two sisters, Kathy, who was very much involved in our racing as a scorekeeper, and she helped manage the track at Raceway 7 when Dick McLaughlin ran it. And our younger sister, Mary Ann, she wasn't involved in racing as much, but she was quite an athlete herself.
So you were the Armbruster racing team. I mean, you were kind of deemed a team.
Absolutely. Well, it was, it was a family deal.
And did you consciously had a division of labor among the four brothers, or five of you, I guess, five siblings, as to who was going to do what mostly?
Yeah, we all had our jobs. I managed the team and took care of the tires and wheels. Jack took care of the body, which was a lot of work back in the State Line Aries days. And Bob could do everything. And we had a brother-in-law, Gary Hopp, who was a Raceway 7 late model champion one year. But he can do everything, and he would help. And of course, we had Duke Wilson and Roy Fury and Tim Fury, and we had a bunch of really smart people that helped us go fast.
And you did go fast. And did you? It was interesting to hear your brother talk about his the drive in the sense of the small d, trying to satisfy and perhaps justify your dad's, that you could do it. I mean, that he being an accountant, I almost thinking of a guy who's a bean counter saying, let's make sure we earn a living and can make ends meet, and I don't want you guys to waste money. I mean, I could just see that kind of mindset, but to prove that you could do it. Did you find that same thing too, Jim? Did you?
Not so much. I wasn't so much out to, my angle was probably different than Dan's. Dan had so much drive, and it took him 8 years to win his first race.
Yeah.
He just had so much drive and he never gives up. He just never, ever gave up. And I just supported that.
Yeah. So, but that meant economics. That meant getting sponsors. That meant make balance in the books.
Yeah.
Because your accountant dad would wonder whether you're balancing the books.
Yeah, we every Monday morning we'd sit at Mom and Dad's house, and we'd go over what we spent, the receipts, and all that. I did that with my dad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a challenge. It was a challenge to keep everything going. The hardest part was getting the car to the track, and we were lucky enough and probably knew enough about what we were doing after we got to the late model division that we could make enough money to maintain it as the season went on. Mm-hmm. So the trick was more in the off season, getting money together to put a car together and get your inventory. We try to have all our spare parts and everything, and then just maintain it as the season went along. And I look at what we race for, how the promoters were so good when we were racing late models, and we could run Conneaut, we could run State Line, and even though we didn't go to Erie's much, we could have. And they were three of the best paying tracks in probably on a weekly basis in the country. And we didn't have to drive more than an hour to get to any one of them.
Yeah. Was that a conscious decision where you'd look at the particular race schedule and see, and as you're looking a week ahead, all right, this is a bigger purse, this is a bigger purse. Did you decide your schedule based on that?
I don't know. We decided our racing schedule, at least the last years. Dan liked being home. He didn't like to travel. One year we ran Stars. I can't remember what year it was. Maybe 91, Randy, 90.
That sounds right, Jim.
And we pull out of the driveway, and Dan's 3 daughters would be sitting on the porch with tears in their eyes. And we'd be an hour away before Dan's head would come back to racing. He just didn't like it, you know, and so that's when we decided we just race around home.
What, just for the camera, I'm not sure everybody would know what is Stars. What was Stars?
It was a short track auto racing Stars. It was guys like Donnie Moran, and actually Stars evolved into the World of Outlaws, I believe. Okay, so it's pretty much, it was the regional, toughest circuit regional in our area.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your time frame, Jim, as far as being involved in Armbruster racing? So Dan, as far as that's got 2004, he retires. So your driver retires. What's the timeline? When did it start? I mean, what's your...
Well, we started in, actually, it was 1974. That's when Dan built his first Hooligan, the 57 Chevy. Okay. And that first night of racing, Dan had talked about it was in Niobe, New York, or is it PA, but Niobe, that we had to leave the car there overnight because we couldn't get it home. We were flat towing. And
where was the first race?
It was State Line.
It would have been Niobe, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we ended up leaving it there and getting a wrecker the next day to go pick it up and bring it home. And I was working at General Electric at the time, and I had just got out of high school, and General Electric paid really well. So I said to Dan, I said, we're not going to do that anymore. I said, I'm going to get a truck and I'm going to get a trailer. You get the race car together, and I'll get us a way to get there, to get the car to the racetrack. And we bought Gary Hoover's old trailer. He gave us a deal. I think we paid $800 for it. And and then Bob, my brother Bob, put a 429 in a 61 Ford, Dan? 61 Ford. And my brother Bob out at the Erie County Tech School dropped the 429 in it. And we used that to get to the races for a few years. That was back in the day.
Back in the day. And then, do you remember the decision to kind of get into late models? I mean,
I do. Probably better than Dan does, because I think it was 1985 that the Raceway 7 eliminated the semi-late class. So we could no longer run semi-lates, and we had to go up or get out. And I can remember it was Christmas Day, we were discussing it, we were at my mom and dad's house, and my dad says to Dan, do you really think you can run with those guys? You know, where my dad had doubted him, and Dan, always confident in anything that he did, football, basketball, baseball. You know, Dan was an amazing athlete. Always confident, says, yeah, I can run with them. And it took us, I think, 3 years of running late models before we won our first feature, but yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do.
Well, tell me about it.
Well, we had bought a Bullet car, a brand new Bullet car, and we bought the Dream that Donnie Moran had won the Dirt Track World Championship with, and we put that in the Bullet, of course, and we went to Raceway 7, and the car was really fast down the straightaways. Wouldn't turn left, but it was fast enough down the straightaway that we were able to win our first feature, and that was a special night. And I can remember saying to my dad, throwing the tires up on a trailer after the race was over. I can remember saying, Dad, I said, this is why we bought the car, and this is why we bought this motor. And I don't know what it costs today, but I remember we paid $17,000 for the motor, and we paid $13,000. We had $13,000 in the chassis. So we went racing on $30,000, and I think that would be a dream to any racer, late model racer these days, to get away with that kind of a price tag.
And then kind of off you went. I mean, success seemed to enhance. I mean, seemed to be enhanced after that.
Yeah, and I think we had our best years when Bill Roberts owned the cars. Bill was able to, when you race on a budget like we did when we were Armbruster racing, you could have ideas and things that you thought could make you faster, but you couldn't get them financially. With Bill and Jody supported us. Whatever we needed, they would get for us, and so we were able to experiment a little bit more, and we got better. Bill was a tough guy to work for, but he has a heart bigger than this room, you know. And we really appreciate everything he's done for us. He's left us with a lot of good memories, and I enjoy seeing him when I see him. It's rare, but he's a fun guy.
Did you, unlike your brother, did you keep track of kind of where you were on the standings? I mean, you're a 3-time state line track champion and many times Raceway 7. Did you kind of know where you were as the season was coming towards the end?
I would say that I did, and my dad did, being a statistician. I probably followed that stuff closer than Dan did. Because, I mean, at some point, you got to obviously be at the track to do the races to get the points. So as you're scheduling towards the end of the year and deciding where to be, did that come into play? You'd almost make your decision if you're going to run for the track championship before the season started.
Okay.
You'd almost say, like, well, let's race around home. How about we try to win this championship and this championship? And one year we wanted to try to win all 3, which I think Dick's probably done. But we wanted to try to win all 3, and we did. We won Raceway 7 or Speedway 7, whatever that was, and we won State Line. And we went to Erie's, and on the last night we were leading points going in. And we were winning the feature by almost half a lap. With about 12 laps to go or so, we broke an axle. And Dan was able to lead the race 2 more laps before they caught him, and he finally pulled in. And I think it was Scott Gerdak. I'm not sure. I think it was Scott Gerdak that won the track championship that year, and we finished second. But after that, every 500 laps, we changed our axles, and we never broke another axle. Tires.
You know, as little as I knew about the business, but it seemed like you at certain racetracks, you had to race a certain tire, and that kind of a monopoly almost. Was that your time period?
Yeah. Franny had a track tire where you had to run they're American Racers or McCreary's back in the day. But yeah, it gave you 4 different compounds to run, 4 or 5. And we just did the best we could with what we had.
Was that controversial at the time, or?
I didn't like it, because if you wanted to race somewhere else, those tires, they were good. The tires were good tires. They worked great at State Line when everybody else was on the same thing, but they were narrower, and they just weren't, you wouldn't want to run them. You'd be at a disadvantage if you ran those tires somewhere else. And when you're running against the level of competition that we ran against, we couldn't afford to give up 1.5 inches of tire service.
Right.
So, yeah, it was nice because the tire rule was good, because I think tires were like $80 a tire. And that was good for the everyday racer. We were on a deal where we got our tires for $80 anyways. So it didn't help us, but it helped maybe the guys who weren't as fortunate as we were to get a tire deal.
Who was when you're at a track and you see your competition, because there's certain areas that you park, you're there's just designated, and did you kind of talk to the other teams? Did you kind of?
I did a lot.
Were you the guy that interfaced with the other teams, or was it?
Well, when it comes to tires, I tried to be open with my knowledge of what I knew about them, and in return, I always felt like the guys that I shared information with were honest with me too, and that helped us become successful.
Again, more recently, this in the last 15 years, I guess, they would actually put towels on the tires, so people would walk by and not know what tire you're starting with. Did that happen in your time period?
Yeah, we had, I can't remember, two-sided tape or whatever, and you'd put it over the compound, or you'd grind the compound number right off the tire. Yeah, and I can remember, this is a fun story about Brian Roman. We were at Erie's, and we'd have the two-sided tape on, and maybe after the heat race or after the feature, if we had a good night, he'd come over and check our compound. And he'd take that two-sided tape and he'd pull it back, so he could see what we had. Well, one day I was sitting in the garage and I had an idea, and I put on duct tape underneath the two-sided tape, I put F.U. Brian. And he come over and checked our tires, and he got the message. But Brian was a lot of fun. Brian. Yeah, we had, guys. I remember I talked a lot with Bob Close and Todd Andrews, and Warren. Warren was always good about sharing information. He was from Dick's crew.
Dick's team,
yeah. Skip Furlow would help me a lot. I know the night of the Nightmare 150, Skip starting off the pole, and it was real moist that night. It was real rainy, and we were worried about the hard tire being too hard. And Skip told me what he was going to run, and I went back to Dan and said, "Hey, this is what Skip's going to run. I think that's probably what we should run too." And it worked, and Skip ended up finishing second. So, but he shared his knowledge with me that day, and that's something I'll never forget.
Did you go to other people's garages during the week, or did any of that happen, or was it pretty much a closed secret?
Yeah, we didn't go to other people's garages. We'd have visitors come over to see us once in a while, but it was usually never anybody that was that we were in the heat of competition with.
Yeah.
Some guys would come over and want to ask to borrow something, or they come over and have a cup of coffee and BS a little bit. But no, there wasn't much of us going out and visiting others.
I got somewhat, again, through interviews with Dick's team, got to interview some of those guys, and there's divisional labors within that. The guys that were in there setting it up. You got the tire guys, you got this guy, and there definitely was a quarterback that wasn't Dick. I mean, that was said. Did you have a quarterback on your team?
Maybe I would organize the schedules, because you couldn't scale the car until the body work was done, right? So you wouldn't, you'd set your time up like depending on what needed to be done. Maybe we'd be lucky and come home on a Friday night and not need any body work done. So, I'd get up early, I'd wash the car and back it in. I'd say, "Hey, Roy, could you be in the shop at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to, whatever he needed to do?" I would try to set the time schedule up with the guys and organize the guys And as you anticipate the schedule, did you normally race during high times? Was it Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, is that what Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Yeah, we'd run Connie at Friday, State Line Saturday, and Erie's on Sunday when we raced around home. Yeah. And then
you brought the car back on Sunday, and did you have a day off, or Monday? I know it sounds like you're talking economics with your mom and dad, and then
Yeah, well, Mondays I'd usually wash the car and get it backed in to the garage and up on the scales or whatever. And I think most of the time the other guys would take Monday nights off. I would try to take a Tuesday night off, or I'd get a hold of my buddies that maybe weren't involved in racing and go have a steak and a beer somewhere, and I'd get Tuesday night off. And but that was it. When we were running 3 nights a week, I'd take Tuesday nights off, and the rest was it's what we did.
did you during the season have time with the racers themselves? I mean, after the race, did you guys get together? I know in the old days they did that, but that's the old days. Did you do it now?
I know at Conneaut, back when I was the public relations guy there, Dick McLaughlin took all the old bleachers and stuck them in the woods, and we'd get a big bonfire going. And after the races, and there'd be a bunch of guys come over. We'd get a half a keg every Friday or Saturday night, whatever night they were running. But I can remember Lou Blaney would come over, and Kenny Brightbill came over a few times. And it was fun. It was fun to do that kind of stuff. But as it got on later, when you're racing 3 nights a week, you didn't have the time for that. I always try to make an effort to congratulate the person that won the race, because I know how hard they worked. I know how hard they worked to win that race, and I'd always try to, congratulate them. But that would be about it. Might have a beer or two around the trailer before we packed up and went home.
Again, I'm hearkening back to the guys that were racing in the 50s and 60s. We interviewed them many years ago, and occasionally in the pits themselves, whether it was the drivers themselves or the guys working on the cars, would kind of exercise their emotions against each other. I'm trying to be polite. Was that a scene at all in your time period?
Sure. Dan was hot-tempered, and it wasn't always pretty. But there were a few times where things happened that we probably aren't real proud of today. But I think that was part of the sport.
Yeah. Well, it still is. I mean, we watch occasionally, even NASCAR. I mean, it gets to that point. Because it's one-on-one. It's, when you're out there on the track.
Yes.
And I'm not asking for details, unless of course you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I better not.
It's hard for him to say anything bad about that.
Yeah. Dan, I should probably, I don't know if I could have extracted him. I'm not sure I could have done that.
Yeah.
So, in 2004, Dan quits, but you still have the blood. It's in you. You continue on. What's the rest of your racing arc?
No, I was done when Dan left. I had a motorcycle crash, and I broke my leg pretty badly, and that was it. I missed the last, quarter of that season, and things weren't going well, and Dan decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and I was all for it. It was to do other things in life, for racing we spent a lot of years, that's all we did, and it was nice to experience something else.
Do you go to State Line now?
I might have been there twice in the last 20 years.
As you were listening to Dan's interview, and he was terrific, was there something that you thought I should have extracted from Dan that I didn't?
Not really. I know one race that we won that was big to us that he didn't mention was the Den 100. It was at Erie's, and that was a special win for us because it was at home.
Mm-hmm.
And the winning the Stars race at Erie's was pretty special too. Dan came from 11th, and I have a little bit of a funny story. I'm going to apologize to Todd Andrews in advance, but we weren't grooving our tires. The track was so hard it was like asphalt, so we weren't grooving our tires for this. And I told Joel Smith, who is a very good friend of mine, I said, "Hey, Joel," I said, "you might want to say something to Todd." I said, "But we haven't been grooving our tires here." And Joel told me later, Andrews told him, "What kind of dumbass doesn't groove his tires?" Well, on the 41st lap, Todd pushed out on a restart, and Dan got underneath him, and the dumbass that didn't groove his tires won the race.
You know, to the normal person that is not in the race business, you've mentioned so many times about tires, the grooving of the tires, the protection of the secrecy behind the tires. Well, you know, how much that is such a part of it. I mean, you have to look at the track. You have to gauge as the track is even changing during the race. I mean, from the heats to the semis to the final. I mean, that is such an art.
Yeah, I think so. It'd be more for a traveling team of it to be an art. Like when you race the same tracks every week, you have a good idea to have have everything prepared. It was always the thing. You try to get to the racetrack and you'd like to have everything prepared, except maybe the final cut that you put on those tires. But when you travel and you haven't been to that track and you don't know exactly how that track's going to change, you know, that those guys are the artists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, knowing how to cut them. And I would always go to Dan and I'd say, "Hey, Dan, this is what I think. What do you think?" And he always had the last word. Because if it went bad and he ended up he's the one that looks like the dumbass, not the guy that picked the tire, right? Nobody sees the guy that picks the tire. So Dan always had last word, and we most always agreed. So.
What's a question I should have asked you, Jim, that I haven't asked you?
I don't know. I think I miss the people in racing and the friends that I had. I don't have that amount of friends anymore like I did back then. And that's the part that I miss most about racing is the people.
Mm-hmm.
The competition, I don't have that release anymore. I don't play sports anymore. You know, I don't have that release anymore. And I miss that. But I don't miss trying to put the money together. I don't miss, you know, I don't miss the tough nights, and there are many more tough nights than there were successful nights for any racer.
Yeah. Well, this is terrific, and it's just such a great family story. It's the Armbruster story. Did you as the four brothers kind of stay together, kind of sort of throughout, or?
Yeah, and we still are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, we still are.
You know, I find you guys are big guys. This is big guys. And tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing Randy Otander.
Oh yeah,
Bigger guy.
He's a big
than
guy.
you guys.
Yeah.
And it always having tried to get in and out of stock cars. That's a long story, but just myself. And I'd say, "Holy shoot! How do you guys get in and out?" I mean, unbelievable. But you did it.
Yeah, they knew how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness for the removable steering wheel in the later years.
It's remarkable. Thank you very much, Jim.
You're welcome.
Let's get a picture of you.